The shuttle from Earth came down slowly through the orange clouds of Prime. Inside the shuttle, a young woman sat alone. Her name was Park. She was 23 years old. She had black hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were calm and steady. She looked out the window at the alien world below and felt nothing but curiosity. The Galactic Military Academy was the most famous training ground in the known universe. Warriors from 300 different species came here to learn. They came to become the best soldiers in the galaxy. The academy had been running for 10,000 years. Its teachers were legends. Its graduates were feared across every star system. Humans had only discovered space travel 60 years ago. They were new to the galactic community. Most aliens saw them as weak and soft. Humans had no claws. They had no armor on their skin. They could not breathe underwater or survive in extreme heat. Their bones broke easily. Their skin tore easily. By all measures, they were one of the weakest species in the galaxy. When the shuttle landed, the doors opened with a hiss, picked up her small bag and walked down the ramp. The air of Prime was thick and warm. It smelled like metal and something sweet she could not name. She did not mind it. A huge figure waited for her at the bottom of the ramp. He was Director, the head of the academy. He was a reptile-like creature who stood almost 3 meters tall. His scales were black and shiny like polished stone. His eyes were yellow with thin black slits in the center. When he spoke, his voice was deep like thunder rolling across mountains. "You are the human candidate?" asked. His translator device made his words flat and emotionless. "Yes, Director," replied. She had to look up to meet his eyes. She did not look away. Studied her for a long moment. He had seen many species come through the academy. He had watched the strong become weak. He had watched the proud become broken. He could usually tell within seconds which candidates would survive and which would fail. Looking at this small human woman, he felt certain he knew the answer. "You understand what you have signed up for?" asked. "The academy is not a school. It is a test of everything you are. 17% of candidates do not survive orientation week." "I read the information packet," said simply. "Reading about death and experiencing it are very different things, human." "I imagine they are." Made a sound in his throat. It might have been a laugh or a growl. He could not decide if this human was brave or stupid. Perhaps both. Perhaps it did not matter. The academy would sort it out soon enough. "Orientation begins tomorrow morning," said. "The first test is the pain threshold examination. Every candidate must complete it. The examination measures how much pain your body and mind can handle before breaking. Many candidates withdraw. Some candidates die. There is no shame in knowing your limits." Nodded slowly. "What time should I be there?" Second set of eyelids blinked. This was a sign of confusion among his people. Most candidates asked questions when they heard about the pain examination. They asked what kind of pain. They asked if there was any way to prepare. They asked if they could delay the test. This human asked none of these things. "6th hour after sunrise," said. "I will be there." Walked past him toward the candidate barracks. Her footsteps were quiet on the stone floor of the landing area. Watched her go. She walked like someone who had walked into dangerous places before. There was no fear in her steps. There was no excitement either. She simply moved forward like water flowing downhill. Natural. Unstoppable. The barracks were large buildings made of dark metal. Inside, candidates from many different worlds had already arrived. Some were huge creatures with 4 arms. Some were small and covered in fur. Some had no solid body at all and floated like clouds of colored gas. They all turned to look when entered. A large furry creature approached her. His name was, he belonged to a species called the. They were known across the galaxy as some of the toughest warriors alive. Stood 2.5 meters tall. His fur was gray and thick. His face looked something like a bear from Earth but with 6 eyes instead of 2. "You are the human," said. His voice was like stones grinding together. "Yes. I have heard of your kind. You are new to space, new to war, new to everything. Leaned down closer. You are small, soft. Why are you here? Looked up at him without fear. To learn. To learn or to die. Maybe both. I have not decided yet. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he made a sound deep in his chest. It was laughter. He straightened up and nodded. I think I like you, little human. You are either very brave or very foolish. We will find out tomorrow at the pain examination. We will, agreed. That night lay in her small bed in the barracks. Around her, alien candidates talked in strange languages. Some of them laughed. Some of them sounded scared. Listened to it all. She thought about home. She thought about Earth. She thought about all the people who said humans were not ready for the galaxy. She thought about all the people who said she would fail. Then she closed her eyes and slept deeply and peacefully. Tomorrow would be an interesting day. The sun rose over Prime with a deep red glow. The sky turned from black to purple to orange, was already awake. She had washed her face with cold water and tied her hair back tight. She wore the simple gray uniform all candidates received. She ate a small breakfast of bland food cubes that tasted like nothing. Then she walked to the examination chamber. The chamber was the largest building in the academy. It was shaped like a giant dome made of white stone. Inside, there were seats arranged in a circle going up and up like stairs. 300 candidates sat in those seats. They came from 40 different species. They all watched the center of the room where a single chair stood alone under bright lights. The chair did not look special. It was made of dark metal with straps for arms and legs, but every candidate knew what it was. They had heard the stories. The neural induction chair was the most feared piece of equipment in the academy. It did not cut you. It did not burn you. It did not break your bones. It did something worse. It made your brain believe you were experiencing the worst pain possible. Every nerve in your body would scream even though nothing was actually happening to you. Found a seat near the middle rows. Was already there. He nodded at her when she sat down. Did you sleep well, little human? He asked. Yes, very well. Made his grinding stone laugh again. You are strange. Most candidates could not sleep at all last night. I heard crying from some of the rooms. Crying does not help anything, said. No, it does not. The examination began. One by one, candidates were called to the chair. A thin, insect-like creature named ran the machine, had many legs and arms that moved constantly like he was always nervous. He attached sensors to each candidate before starting the test. The first candidate was a large blue creature with thick skin like armor. He sat in the chair with confidence. The test began at level 1. He showed no reaction. Level 2, still nothing. Level 3, his hands began to shake. Level 4, he started breathing hard. Level 5, he screamed and raised his hand to signal withdrawal. The test stopped. He had scored 5. More candidates followed. Some scored higher. Some scored lower. A jellyfish-like creature only reached level 2 before its entire body started to collapse. Medical teams rushed in to save it. A rock-based reached level 6 before cracking down the middle of its body. It survived but would need months to heal. Was called. He walked to the chair like he was walking to meet an old enemy. He sat down and closed his 6 eyes. The test began. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, 4, 5, 6. At level 6, fur stood up all over his body. His claws dug into the armrests so hard they left marks in the metal. At level 7, he opened his mouth and roared so loud the walls shook. Then he raised his hand. 7.2 announced, excellent score, one of the highest today. Walked back to his seat slowly. His legs were shaking. Sweat soaked his fur. He sat down next to and said nothing for a long time. That was impressive, said. That was hell, replied. Level 7 feels like every bone in your body is being crushed while you burn alive. I could not take one more second. Nodded and said nothing. More names were called. The hours passed. Finally, near the end of the day, looked at his list and spoke. Candidate Park, Earth. The entire chamber went quiet. Everyone had been waiting for this moment. The first human to ever sit in the neural induction chair. Most of them expected entertainment. They expected to see the soft little human cry and beg and withdraw at level 2 or 3. Some had even made bets about how quickly she would break. Stood up and walked down to the chair. Her steps were steady. Her face showed nothing. She sat down and placed her arms on the armrests, attached the sensors to her temples, her neck, her wrists. The machines hummed as they connected to her nervous system. The examination will begin at level 1, explained. The pain will increase step by step. You may signal withdrawal at any time by raising your hand. Do you understand these rules? Yes. Are you mentally prepared to begin? Settled back into the chair. She rolled her shoulders once to get comfortable. She closed her eyes. Then she opened them again and looked directly at. Whenever you are ready, she said calmly. Started the machine. Level 1 activated. Nothing happened. His face did not change. Her body did not move. Level 2, still nothing. Level 3 took a slightly deeper breath. That was all. Level 4, the level where many candidates began to scream. Fingers twitched once. She did not make a sound. In the observation seats, candidates began to whisper to each other. Something was wrong. The readouts showed the machine was working correctly. The pain signals were reaching her brain, but the human was not reacting. Level 5. Eyes narrowed slightly. A small line appeared between her eyebrows. She was concentrating on something far away. Level 6. The level where had been roaring in agony, opened her eyes and looked at with an expression of mild curiosity. Excuse me, she said, her voice calm and clear. Are we beginning now? The entire chamber fell completely silent. Did not understand what was happening. His many legs clicked nervously on the floor. He checked the machine readings 3 times. Everything was working perfectly. The neural induction chair was sending level 6 pain signals directly into the human's brain. Level 6 was supposed to feel like being burned alive while drowning, while every bone in your body broke at the same time. And this small human woman had just asked if the test had started. The examination is currently at level 6, said. His voice was confused. You are experiencing the equivalent of severe trauma across your entire nervous system. Tilted her head slightly. Ah, she said, that explains why my skin feels warm. Up in the observation seats, no one moved. No one spoke, had stopped breathing. Director had risen from his seat in the top row. His yellow eyes were fixed on the small figure in the chair below. This is not possible, whispered a crystalline being sitting near. The machine must be broken. The machine is not broken, replied quietly. Look at the readouts. She is receiving full signal strength. Then how is she talking? Had no answer. He had experienced level 6 himself. At that level, thinking was impossible. Speaking was impossible. Everything disappeared except the pain. But this human was having a conversation like she was waiting for tea. Director pressed a button on his communication device. Continue the examination, he ordered. Hesitated. Director, this is highly unusual. Perhaps we should stop and examine the candidate to ensure. Continue. His legs clicked faster. He increased the level. Level 7. This was higher than most candidates ever reached. At this level, the pain was beyond description. The brain experienced sensations that no living creature was designed to feel. His hands tightened on the armrests. Her jaw muscles flexed. A thin layer of sweat appeared on her forehead, but she did not scream. She did not raise her hand. Her eyes stayed open, staring at some point in the distance that only she could see. Level 7.5. Her breathing changed. It became slower and deeper. She was controlling it deliberately, like someone practicing meditation. Her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. Level 8. This was the highest score in Academy history. A warrior had reached level 8 300 years ago. He had survived the test but lost his mind completely. He spent the rest of his life in a medical facility, unable to speak or recognize anyone. Level 8 was considered the limit of what any living creature could experience. Made a sound. It was small, almost like a grunt. Her body trembled once. A single tear fell from her left eye and rolled down her cheek, but it was not a tear of emotion. It was simply her body reacting to the overload of signals flooding her nervous system. Candidate Park said, his voice was shaking now. You have matched the historical record. You may withdraw with full honors. No one will think less of you. Please, raise your hand. His eyes moved to look at. She did not raise her hand. What comes after this? She asked. Her voice was tight but clear. Looked up at Director. His insect eyes were wide with something that looked like fear. Continue, said. His voice was barely a whisper, but everyone heard it. Level 8.5. His entire body went stiff. Every muscle locked tight. Her hands gripped the armrests so hard the metal began to bend under her fingers. Her teeth pressed together. The machines showed her heart rate increasing rapidly. Her brain activity was spiking in patterns that had never seen before. In the observation seats, several candidates looked away. A young four-armed creature began to cry. Even the mighty warrior felt sick watching, but did not raise her hand. Level 9. Screamed. It was a sound that no one in that chamber would ever forget. It was not a scream of fear or surprise. It was a scream of pure, absolute agony. The kind of scream that came from somewhere deeper than the throat. It came from the soul. The scream lasted 3 seconds, then it stopped. His body was shaking violently. Her face had gone completely white. Blood began to drip from her nose where tiny vessels had burst from the strain. Her eyes were still open. They were wet with tears that flowed without stopping. But her hand stayed down on the armrest. Stop the test, someone shouted from the observation seats. You will kill her. His legs were shaking so badly he could barely stand. Director, please, we must stop. No creature can survive. What is her hand doing? Asked quietly. Everyone looked. His hand was still flat on the armrest, not raised, not even twitching towards surrender. She is not signaling withdrawal, said. Continue. Director. Continue. Level 9.2. His body arched up against the straps. Every muscle stood out under her skin like cables of iron. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She had gone beyond screaming. She had reached a place where pain became something else entirely. Then slowly, impossibly, her head turned. Her blood-filled eyes found, her cracked lips moved. Is that, she whispered, each word costing more than anyone could imagine, all you have got? Hit the emergency stop. The machines went silent. The lights dimmed. In the sudden quiet, the only sound was ragged breathing. She sat in the chair, her body still trembling, blood drying under her nose. She had scored 9.2. She had broken every record in 10,000 years of Academy history. And she had not raised her hand. The medical bay was quiet and dark. Soft lights glowed from machines that monitored everything happening inside's body. She lay on a bed made of some material that felt like a cloud. Neural stabilizers hummed around her head, helping her brain recover from what it had experienced. She had been unconscious for 6 hours after the test. Now she was awake. Her body hurt in ways she could not describe. It was not real pain from real injury. It was the memory of pain. Her brain had been through something terrible and it was still trying to understand what had happened. Every few minutes, a wave of phantom agony would wash through her, making her grip the sheets until her knuckles turned white. Then it would pass. The door opened. Director walked in. His massive body seemed to fill the entire room. He moved slowly, carefully, as if he was approaching a wild animal he did not understand. You are awake, said. It was not a question. Yes, his voice was rough and dry. Stood at the end of her bed. For a long moment he said nothing. He simply looked at her with those yellow eyes. Finally, he spoke. 9.2, he said. In 10,000 years of Academy history, no candidate has ever scored above 8.1. You exceeded that by more than a full level. You should be dead. You should be brain dead at minimum. The medical staff cannot explain why you are lying here talking to me. Almost smiled, almost. I am stubborn. This is not stubbornness. This is something else, something I do not understand. Moved closer. His shadow fell across her bed. Your species has no natural defenses. You cannot regenerate damaged tissue quickly. Your bones are hollow and weak. Your skin provides almost no protection. By every measure we use to evaluate species, humans are among the weakest we have ever encountered. And yet you just did something that should be impossible. Was quiet for a moment. She stared at the ceiling, gathering her thoughts. Her mind was still foggy from the test, but she knew this conversation was important, more important than her score, more important than any record. Can I ask you something first? She said. Yes. How long has the species existed? Considered the question. Approximately 2 million of your Earth years. And in those 2 million years, what was the main challenge your species faced? We evolved on a world with abundant resources, said slowly. Our main challenge was competition with other predator species. We developed armor and strength to defeat them. Nodded. My species has existed for about 300,000 years, much younger than yours, and our world had resources too, but it also had something else. She paused. It had everything trying to kill us, every single day. Second eyelids flickered. Explain. Humans evolved on a planet that did not want us to survive. We had predators that were faster than us, stronger than us, with bigger teeth and sharper claws. We had no armor, no venom, no natural weapons at all. We were soft and slow and weak. Then how did you survive? We did not give up, turned her head to look at directly. That is it. That is the entire secret. When something tried to kill us, we did not give up. When we were hungry, we kept hunting. When we were cold, we kept walking. When we were hurt, we kept fighting. We learned that pain was not our enemy. Pain was just information. It told us something was wrong, but it could not make us stop unless we let it. Said nothing. He was listening with an intensity had never seen before. Over thousands of generations, this became part of who we are, continued. Our bodies learned to handle pain differently. Our minds learned to push through it. We developed ways of thinking that let us separate the feeling of pain from the need to surrender to it. Your machine made me feel terrible things, things I cannot describe, but I have felt pain before. Every human has. We live with it. We grow up with it. Some of us even seek it out. Seek it out sounded genuinely confused. We call them sports, games where we hurt ourselves and each other for fun. We run until our lungs burn and our legs feel like they are dying. We fight each other with our fists until our faces bleed. We climb mountains that freeze our fingers. We swim in oceans that crush our bodies with pressure. We do these things because the pain makes us feel alive. Step back. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked uncertain. My people developed armor because pain is something to avoid, he said slowly. Your people developed tolerance because pain is something to embrace. Not embrace exactly, said. More like accept. Pain is part of life. Fighting it wastes energy. So we learn to let it in, acknowledge it, and then keep going anyway. The pain in that chair was the worst thing I have ever felt, but it was still just pain, and I have been dealing with pain since I was born. Was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost respectful. I think I have made a mistake, he said. I thought your species was weak because you are soft. I did not understand that softness and weakness are not the same thing. Closed her eyes. The phantom pain washed through her again, making her body shake. But she did not cry out. She just breathed through it until it passed. We are not warriors because we do not feel pain, she said quietly. We are warriors because we feel all of it and keep going anyway. 3 years passed. graduated from the Galactic Military Academy at the top of her class. She earned the highest marks in 7 different categories, including combat strategy, hostile environment survival, psychological warfare, and pain resistance. No one was surprised by that last one. On graduation day, Director himself pinned the Academy's highest honor medal on her chest. As he did, he leaned close and spoke quietly so only she could hear. "You have changed everything," he said. "Because of you, we understand your species differently now. The galaxy will never look at humans the same way again." Nodded once, that was always the plan. After graduation, more humans came to the Academy. First a handful, then dozens, then hundreds. They did not all score as high as on the pain examination, but they all scored higher than anyone expected. The Academy eventually had to create new guidelines. They warned non-human candidates not to compare themselves to human pain tolerance scores because the results would only make them feel bad about themselves. Became an officer in the Galactic Defense Fleet. She rose through the ranks quickly. Her reputation from the Academy followed her everywhere. Soldiers from 100 different species requested to serve under her command. They knew that a human leader would never give up, would never surrender, would never stop fighting until the battle was won or everyone was dead. 20 years after her graduation, something happened that changed the galaxy forever. A new enemy appeared from the darkness between stars. They called themselves the Swarm. No one knew where they came from or what they wanted. They simply arrived and started destroying everything in their path. They were parasites who fed on the suffering of other species. Their weapons did not kill quickly. They did something worse. They caused pain. Endless, overwhelming, impossible pain. Their victims usually begged for death within seconds. When the Swarm attacked their first colony world, the defenders surrendered almost immediately. The pain weapons were too much. No species could fight while every nerve in their body was screaming. The Swarm moved from system to system, conquering everything they touched. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings. Military leaders from every major species argued about what to do. No one had answers. How do you fight an enemy whose primary weapon is something you cannot defend against? Then someone remembered the human who had asked if the test was starting while experiencing level 6 pain. The council called for human help. Admiral commanded the first human fleet. He was 57 years old with gray hair and a face full of scars from decades of service. When he received the orders to engage the Swarm, he gathered his crew and spoke to them directly. "You all know what the Swarm does," he said. "You all know their weapons cause pain beyond anything we have trained for. Some of you might die. Some of you might wish you were dead, but we are human, and humans do not quit." The fleet jumped into Swarm territory. The battle began immediately. Swarm ships surrounded the human fleet and activated their pain weapons. The effect was instant and horrible. Every human on every ship felt it at once. It was like fire and ice and crushing pressure all mixed together. It was like being torn apart from the inside. The pain was designed to make any creature drop their weapons and beg for mercy. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral gripped the arms of his command chair. His knuckles turned white. Blood began to drip from his nose. His body shook violently. Around him, his crew was experiencing the same thing. Some of them screamed. Some of them fell to the floor, but none of them stopped working. Their hands kept moving across their control panels. Their eyes stayed focused on their screens. The Swarm watched through their sensors, waiting for the surrender that always came. It did not come. Instead, Admiral opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. His face appeared on Swarm screens across 1,000 ships. He was bleeding. He was shaking. His voice came out rough and broken, but he was smiling. "Interesting," he said. "Your weapons have a nice kick to them." The Swarm did not understand. No species had ever spoken during pain bombardment. No species had ever resisted. They increased the weapon power. Admiral's smile did not fade. More blood ran down his face. His body convulsed. But he kept his eyes open. He kept looking directly into the communication screen. "Now let me show you what pain really means," he said. The human fleet attacked. What followed was not really a battle. It was a lesson. The swarm had built their entire civilization around causing pain to others. They had never considered what would happen if they met a species that had made peace with pain. A species that could take everything the swarm had and keep coming. A species that had spent 300,000 years learning to function through suffering. The war lasted 6 months. The human fleet lost 11 ships. The swarm lost everything. Their home worlds burned. Their fleets were destroyed. Their species was scattered across the void, fleeing from the small, soft creatures they had thought would be easy prey. After the war, a new saying spread across the galaxy. It was whispered in military academies and government buildings, and anywhere people gathered to talk about the strange beings from Earth. "Never fight a human," the saying went. "They have already suffered more than you can imagine, and somewhere along the way they learned to like it." Years later, historians would trace the change in galactic perception of humanity back to a single moment. A young woman sitting in a chair, pain flooding through her body at levels that should have destroyed her mind, and her calm voice asking a simple question that echoed through 10,000 years of academy history. "Are we beginning now?" That was the day the galaxy learned what humans really were, not the weakest species, not the softest species, but perhaps the most dangerous species of all, because they had turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. They had taken pain, the universal language of defeat, and made it into just another obstacle to overcome. And once you could do that, nothing in the universe could stop you.